So ready to rumble?
Let's go.
So in terms of the films, then I mean, it's a question that loads of Godfather fans get asked and ask each other. If you had to pick between the first two, which one would it be?
It changes consistently. One
Right.
time when I watched like both of them, at that time I would like part one more, but then I would watch the part two later on, and then I would like that one more. So, but I think as a movie as a whole, the first one is like perfect.
Yeah.
Which one would you choose? Yeah.
I mean, similar to what you said, it kind of changes, doesn't it? But like you said,
Yeah.
the first one is such a complete movie. It works from beginning to end. All the characters, the structure, the pacing, everything is just perfect. The second one is a little bit more difficult to get into because there's so much uncertainty in like the first hour. Like you don't really know what it's about. You don't know who the assassins are. Michael knows things that he hasn't yet told the audience, and it's all a bit, but then once the film really gets going, it just becomes amazing. And I don't know, but the thing is, it changes day by day. If I watch the first one now, I'll say the first one's better. If I watch the second one now, I'll say the second one's better. So let's go on then to the third one. What's your opinion on Godfather Part 3?
Well, I rewatched it like quite recently, and it wasn't that bad. Like, it was my first time watching it from start to finish, and it wasn't horrible, but it had like a lot of problems. It had the potential. It could have been amazing, but they just didn't like follow through with it.
Right. How would you improve it then? And what would you say its main problems were?
I mean, to be honest, there's like a lot, but the main thing, if they just got this one thing right, would have been way better. I don't want to just blame it on Al Pacino, but he wasn't Michael Corleone. I don't know, it didn't seem like I was watching the same character from like part two, who's like calm and like calculated and all that. This guy was different, but you can't blame him. It's like, I don't know how long after the original was.
Yeah, a common complaint is that he essentially just plays himself, because in
Exactly,
the 90s he had that kind of thing where he was screaming and shouting and very exaggerated performances, and he couldn't quite capture that kind of quiet, silent menace from the Godfather Part 2, when he's playing with his eyes and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean, like you said, you can't really blame him, because that's kind of how the character is played in the third film. That's probably how it was written in the script for him. There's not much you can do about that. A favorite character?
Probably, yeah, Vito. Just Vito, yeah. Michael's great, but like Vito's the first character that, looking into him and all that. Michael at the start, I didn't really like him. I found him like, I don't know how to explain him. Like, I don't know the right word for it, but yeah, Vito's like straight, like he's the embodiment of like power and all like those type of things.
So who would you say was more effective then, as a kingpin, as a mob boss between the two, father and son?
Probably Vito, because he's like more sustainable. Like Michael wanted to like skyrocket straight away, but he didn't. Like, his organization and all that wasn't that solid so that he could achieve all his like ambitious projects and like going to Cuba and all that, because he wasn't like a solidified leader. Vito built everything from the ground up, so he knew every single level, like, and everything that goes into it. Michael just inherited the throne, so to speak.
Yeah, definitely. So do you, if the roles were reversed, so if it was Michael growing up, so let's say Michael was the immigrant child, and Vito was in Michael's place in Godfather Part 2, with Fredo betraying the family and Hyman Roth, all of that stuff. Can you see the outcomes being the same? Would they both mold into the kind of characters they ended up being in the film? Can you see Vito commit those cold, calculating moves like murdering his own, or obviously it wouldn't be his brother, it'd be his son?
That's a good question. I don't think so. Like, because their priorities like are different. I think like Michael, he thought his way of protecting the family and all that was to make it the most powerful. Vito more understood like that he needed to I don't know how to explain, but yeah, Vito was like more understanding, I guess. He already treated everyone like, he didn't fully not trust, but like he made his calculations so that if anyone could betray him, he would know, like he would be ready. So I think he would have more room to maybe forgive Fredo. I think maybe, yeah.
So is that what you think Vito would do then? So if Fredo did do what he did, and Vito just about avoided, I mean, you could make the argument he kind of did something similar in the first film, except obviously it wasn't something Fredo planned. He just kind of messed up when Vito was another assassination attempt was placed on him. But let's say Fredo did what he did. What decision do you think Vito would have made?
I think it would just make him like sort of like a house arrest type thing. Like just he's confined to the compound, like he can't leave unless like supervised. And maybe then slowly he can like regain their trust. But he wouldn't like kill him like what Michael did. Definitely not.
Yeah, definitely not. Because obviously family came first for Vito. The irony of Michael is that he's done everything within his power to protect his family, but in doing so he loses his family. You know, the kid who gets aborted, he loses Kay, he obviously the sister comes back, but them to drift apart in the second film. And obviously he loses Fredo by killing him, and it's one of the great ironies of the trilogy. But yeah, I'm in the same boat. I don't see, I mean, it's an amazing discussion to have, but I don't see Vito killing Fredo at all. I mean, he maybe would have kind of exiled him out of the family. You know, you can never come back to this household, or maybe kind of giving him some remote, kind of what they did in the first film anyway, some remote job. But I think ultimately the situation would have never got to that stage under Vito, because it was the fact that Fredo got stepped over in the first place by Vito and Michael became the Don that kind of pushed Fredo to have this kind of lingering feeling that he needs to make something for himself. So I mean, Vito knows his children, he knows their nature. He would have sent something. He would have he would have, you know, the way that he does things, everybody on his strings, he would have made it so that Fredo would have never been in a position to cause the family any harm. That's what I think. So in a weird way, the conversation is redundant, because Fredo would have never been able to do what he did under Vito, and he wouldn't even have had the motivation if Vito was still in charge. It's interesting. I don't know if you recall in the books, Fredo is actually quite different, isn't he? He's supposedly considered the strongest of the three brothers, and it's the assassination attempt of Vito that actually changes him, makes him weak, and because obviously it must have messed with his head. They say something like he doesn't speak to anybody for weeks after the assassination attempt, stays in his room, all that kind of stuff. But obviously in the film, it's just that he was weak to begin with, and in part 2 they say he had pneumonia when he was a child and all that kind of stuff. So they changed his character quite a bit. Also, we don't get to see like much of Fredo before like the assassination attempt. So maybe he was like a bit stronger and like more outgoing and all that. But then after he was like traumatized or something. But yeah, they played on the fact that he was like not the smart. So do you, by any chance, do you have because obviously you've made so many videos on The Godfather, I've made so many ones as well. Do you have like a favorite theory?
I can't really think of any good ones, because they're all like explained later on in like the other novels or like stuff like that. I think the Fredo one, the curtain one, there's like a lot of interpretations of like, was it him? He went inside and opened it. That's why he said, I didn't know it was going to be a hit. Did he send someone? Yeah, I mean, Fredo is probably the biggest, you know, he's the one that probably everybody kind of jumps to, as in it's the most obvious suspect. But I always like the kind of Rocco thing, like as a kind of alternative thing, almost as if this is a kind of hidden subplot in the film, with him being sent as punishment to kill Hyman Roth. None of this is actually mentioned by any dialogue. So I actually thought of one. Sorry, yeah.
Is it? Yeah. Go on
then. Do you know the scene where Frank Pentangeli's in the bar? He meets with the Rosado brothers, and then the cop walks in and all that.
Yeah.
I made a video where that it was all planned. Like they planned for the cop to. I can't remember exactly what I said, but they planned for the cop to come inside just to make Frank think that Michael had sent them, because when they put the rope around, then they tried to strangle him. They say Michael Corleone says hello, and then I made a video about it. I can't remember exactly what I said, but yeah, they planned for the cop to come. Hyman Roth planned for the cop to come inside because he just wanted to like get Frank to flip on Michael, something like that. Yeah,
that's a good theory. That actually makes a lot of sense, because that line confuses so many people. I was actually going to make a video on that as well, addressing that, because if you're going to kill Frank Pentangeli, why say Michael Corleone says hello? Is it just to give him one last thought that his friend Michael betrayed him before he dies? But it doesn't really make any sense to say that. But like you say, if the whole thing, including the cop, was a setup, then it will click. So it finally makes sense that they want him to flip on Michael. But not to rain on your parade with this theory, but there is actually I can't remember what his name is, but the actor who said that, Michael Corleone says hello. I saw an interview where he said he basically ad-libbed the line, so it wasn't in the script. So he was strangling the guy, and he just said Michael Corleone says hello, and Coppola kept it in the film because he thought, I don't know why he kept it in the film, but maybe it sounded cool or whatever. So it was that's pretty much it really. It was just the actor ad-libbed it and they left it in the film. So that's probably why there's so much confusion. But maybe it was a case of the filmmakers thought that maybe we can leave this in, and there's the kind of insinuation that it was a setup, and theory ends up being actually canon, and it is a good theory. It makes a lot of sense and it adds a lot of depth to that scene, and Frank Pentangeli as a character, because then it's all kind of sad really. Like, his story is quite sad because he's supposed to be, an OG of the Corleone family, and he doesn't kind of outright betray the Corleones. It's kind of like he thought he was being betrayed. Did you hear that that character was supposed to originally be Clemenza? Yeah, and obviously the actor dropped out and they created a new character.
That, but yeah, Clemenza, that was a bit weird. It was like he should have been in the movie, like even if they had Pentangeli as well, or like at least show us the death of Clemenza, so like we know a bit more. But then the movie, they cut it out because like it would have been like way too long. But Clemenza is one of my favorite characters.
Yeah, I love Clemenza, but I mean, I did a whole video, and there's a whole story behind it, that him and the studio fell out, and it wasn't supposedly over money or anything like that. It was the direction of the character. Richard Castellano, who plays Clemenza, he didn't like, first of all, he wanted his dialogue rewritten. He wanted to rewrite the dialogue. And secondly, he didn't like the idea of Clemenza flipping. He said that would never happen. Clemenza would never do that. So what would you actually prefer then? Because I've spoken a lot about this. But imagine in your head, The Godfather Part 2 is exactly the same as it was now, except there's no such character as Frank Pentangeli, and instead it's Peter Clemenza. And everything we see about Pentangeli happens to Clemenza. He slits his wrist in the end. That scene between him and Tom Hagen in prison, the court proceedings, the hearing, all of that kind of stuff. Would you prefer the film as it is now, or would you prefer it with Clemenza?
I think I would prefer it like with it now, because
So even though Clemenza is one of your favorite characters.
Yeah, because having the image of him like being an old school, like proper like gangster, like Vito, and because he's like because Tessio ends up like betraying Michael, and Clemenza's like the only one left that's actually loyal.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly the reason I sided. It was like, okay, Vito has two capo regimes. Tessio's already betrayed him, and Clemenza goes and does the same thing, and it's nice thinking in your head that he died a loyal man, loyal to the Corleones, whilst at the same time it would be cool seeing him in the film because he's such an amazing character, one of my favorites, one of your favorites, and it would have been really sad hearing him say that line. I don't know if you remember, but Pentangeli says something like, "We were like the Roman Empire." And they reminisce about that, but that doesn't really have as much weight because we didn't know Pentangeli. He was never in the first film. We've not seen him as much. We just kind of know that he betrayed Michael. But if it was Clemenza who said that line, we'd be reminiscing. We'd have all the nostalgia from the first film, and then the sad image of seeing him with his slits, his wrists slit open. But like you say, what we got instead was Clemenza dying a loyal man, a proper old school mafioso gangster, and we got a new great character. Pentangeli, so it all works out in the end.
They could have fixed that, because as you said, it doesn't have that much weight when Pentangeli flips and he says the Roman Empire and all that. They could have fixed it. There's one scene that I think it's deleted, but Vito meets Hyman Roth, like the young Clemenza introduces him to him. So they could have just added like Pentangeli somewhere there, just give him one line or something. So then like at least we see him back in the day with Vito and all that.
Yeah, definitely, because he just kind of comes out of nowhere and he's all of a sudden in charge of the entire Corleone operation in New York. If you knew the original actor for Clemenza wasn't going to return, maybe you should have just shoved Pentangeli in there somewhere in the young Vito scenes. So speaking of favorite scenes, what would be yours in the entire trilogy? What's the one standout scene for you?
It's either the the opening scene when Vito's like talking to Bonacera and it's like be my friend and all that.
Classic.
And then probably the meet, just in part one, it's that one or the meeting of the Dons when they're all like talking and all that.
Right, yeah. What about the second film?
The second film, Michael and Pentangeli, when he's like telling him you're still part of the Corleone family. It's like you have to act like him.
All right.
And
yeah.
all of like and all of like young Vito's scenes. Young Vito with De Niro, yeah.
Right, I see, yeah. So what about the third film then? Is there any, obviously, I'm guessing you're not as big of a fan as the third film.
Yeah, they've got a lot of good quotes. Like, but I don't think there's a good, maybe the final one. Yeah, I don't have a favorite scene from that one. It's just like they have a lot of great quotes in that, yeah.
So apart from The Godfather then, what are your favorite crime films? What are the ones that you think are right up there with The Godfather, if any?
To be honest, I don't think there's any like at the Godfather level. There's of course like Goodfellas and a few others, but The Godfather, it stands out. It's in a league of its own. It's not, I don't even consider it just as a crime mafia. It's just like a brilliant movie. Like I don't compare with other mafia movies. I compare with like other great movies like I don't know, Lord of the Rings or like one of these other epic huge movies.
Yeah, it's true, because just to call it a gangster film doesn't do it justice, because it's so much more. It tackles so many other themes, capitalism, family, all that kind of stuff. Awesome. So yeah, so obviously I've come across your channel because we make similar videos. You make videos on The Godfather, I make videos on The Godfather. So tell me a bit about how your love for The Godfather trilogy started. How did you get into it? The
first time I watched it was like years ago, and I didn't really get it. I knew it was a good movie, but it was like kind of old. The lighting was all dark and stuff. And then, it was just a movie that I watched. Then a couple of years later, I came across, there was like a documentary that Francis Coppola was in. And he started talking about themes behind The Godfather. So things like capitalism and like, his rise to power, that sort. So that intrigued me. So when I rewatched it, it was like I was watching it for the first time and I was like blown away. Because it had everything, like great acting, all of that. So yeah.
Was that just the first one then? Or was that all three of them, or just the first two?
It was the first two, yeah. The first time I watched part 3, I just got bored and I left it.
Wow.
So yeah, 1 and 2. Yeah, I think that, I can't think of any at the moment.
No worries. So yeah, so tell me then, so the YouTube channel, how did that come into play then? So obviously you've clearly got a great love for the Godfather films, you've got a lot of knowledge about them. So when did you decide, right, I'm going to make a YouTube channel, I'm going to start making video essays on this?
During like my time at like university, I just wanted to do something like kind of fun online and stuff. I always had an interest in like making content and all that sort of stuff, but I didn't have like the skill set to actually do it properly. So I've tried different like styles of channels just for fun and that. But then I came across like the whole video essay type scene. So I found all these channels that make video essays about movies and stuff. And I found that like really intrigued. I said, okay, I'll try to do that. Where should I start? Well, The Godfather has a lot of lessons and I thought I should go from there.
Awesome. So is it something you do by yourself, or do you have a team? Do you have guys who work with you? Or are you just a one-man army?
No, it's just me, yeah. I had to learn like everything from scratch, which is all right, but yeah.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it? In terms of, it does give you a lot of skills, because there's a lot more involved than someone might think with a YouTube channel.
Exactly, yeah.
I haven't touched on this already before, but if you were going to kind of branch out from The Godfather, what could we expect then from your channel? What movie do you think you'd like take deep dives into and just kind of go to town with it?
Well, I was thinking about this like a few weeks ago because I'm currently just doing this like just as a hobby, just to like, just for fun and that. But because if I want to like go all in, I'm more interested like in the themes, like power, like for example, maybe like The Gladiator, like talk about the characters in that, and like a lot more movies. Like I would have to like do a lot more research to see like. I don't think I would go to like pick a movie like another movie like The Godfather and go like deep into like the story and all that, but more into like the themes and all that sort of stuff.
Cool. Yeah. So what kind of themes attract you then? Attract you when you're watching a film? What kind of resonates with you then?
It always depends, but like I like the rise and fall of like empires and like the characters rising to power, then how they fall and the mistakes on their way. Like Scarface is a good one. How like his greed makes him fall. And
so yeah, obviously I've noticed. Obviously I'm speaking to you, but obviously the voice in your videos is not your voice clearly. So is there a particular reason for that? Did you use a text to speech software? Is it?
Okay, let me explain this. So okay, at the start, when I was starting out, I just wanted to do this for fun, and like for me, I tried it out. It was not good. Like I tried to narrate it, but then like it's a whole different skill, and I just want to do like the fun stuff. Like I wanted to make the visuals, write the script. The audio itself is like I'll do that later. Like I didn't really bother with it. I didn't know like the channel would like actually people would want to watch it and stuff. So just making these videos just for myself, like was visually satisfying. Like you would look at it, like I would enjoy making the videos, and the audio part was like the boring parts. So then I was like, well, might as well just skip it. Just put text to speech.
Okay, I get it. Yeah. So I mean, didn't you release a video a couple of days ago? Did it have your voice in it? Did it?
Yeah. There's one also on. I made a second channel. It was just like testing it out to see, because like now I'm not gonna keep like doing text to speech. Like I'm thinking of going all in. So that was just like a little.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, you got a cool voice. There's no reason to be like shy about it or anything like that. If that's the case.
Yeah, no, it's more like to be honest, it's more like laziness. Maybe at the start it was like it because if you want to like make a like. If you're going to talk about The Godfather, you can't just talk like casually. You have to know how to sort of like narrate like the videos in a proper way. I can't just like make it like record it on my phone and just like have it all crackly and all that sort of stuff.